on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. And before we return to President Biden's remarks last night and during his State of the Union address, updating the People's Convoy. Did they make it? Yes. Did anybody get arrested and detained in Illinois for driving on our roads? What's the update on the People's Convoy you have, Amy?
Well, our friend John Spiropoulos, who's joined us on our show, he's embedded with the convoy. He said the convoy grew to about 200 more trucks and vehicles, so a total of almost 800 trucks. They were going 55 miles per hour. There were no accidents. There were 3 unmarked cars in the medians as they went through southern Illinois on I-70. And he said there were people on every overpass, but it wasn't a huge enough group to stop and interview them. But he said they were there. You know, some overpasses had 5 or 10 people. The most had 30. But again, no accidents. Nobody was pulled over. Everything went smoothly.
All right,
and they're
very good.
on their way. And he stopped in Putnamville, Indiana, and did some interviews there. So I tweeted out a picture of one of the overpasses in Illinois. And thanks to the people that came out, because they did show up. And then he said some people are on the side of the road.
You know, so, I just because we're on the topic of Illinois, and you can't talk about Illinois without talking about Chicago. I have to remark upon the news that Mike Scott delivered at the top of the hour, that great honky hope / Obama personal rebounder Arne Duncan won't run for mayor of Chicago.
Yeah, he's not going to run.
So my question is, what are the invertebrates who congregate at the Economic Club and populate now vacant C-suite Chicago going to do now?
I heard Bill Daley.
Exactly. You know, I'm mean,
not kidding you.
I just tweeted, is Bill Daley available?
Did you really?
How about Richie Daley? Any Daley. I'll take any Daley.
Well,
Come on.
Arne Duncan thought he was so important that he released a statement. You know, I'm exactly where I need to be, doing the work I love.
Right,
I've
rebounding
never been part
for Obama.
of a more
I got it.
Courageous and committed team. Yeah, he's
so
focusing on gun violence.
Which Daley do you want to run for mayor in 2023? I know we're getting ahead of ourselves. You still have the midterms and so forth, but your choices. You got Bill, you got Rich, and you got John. So which Daley would you like to run as the great honky hope, the great reformer, to replace triple threat? 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line, 64636DA, turnkey.pro text line, because that's the big idea. Arne Duncan was a big idea. And now the fact that there are actually people talking about breaking Bill Daley out of the emergency glass and propping him up for another run. Why would that end any differently? But that's not the point.
Well, real quickly, before we get ahead of our skis, why do you think Arne Duncan is not running? Because they took him out for a tour. Like, he would just end up at press conferences for no reason. And then Mayor Lightfoot would leave because he was there, because Pritzker was, whipping him out every so often to, get the vibe or the pulse of the people. But why do you think he's not running?
I think I said from the outset when these rumors started to abound that I don't think he's going to run. And I think if he does run, he will get demolished because he is a mimbo. He is a lightweight. There is nothing to him. There is nothing interesting about him. There are no ideas kicking around in that prep school little head of his. He was a Obama flunky, personal rebounder to Obama. He was a disastrous education secretary. He was a disastrous CPS superintendent. He's a company man in a company town full of these functionaries.
Well, and I don't want people to forget what he tweeted. Arne Duncan, have you noticed how strikingly similar both the mindsets and actions are between the suicide bomber at Kabul's airport and the anti-mask and anti-vax people here? They both blow themselves up, inflict harm on those around them, and are convinced that they are fighting for freedom.
This is what I'm talking about. He is like a taller version of Kathy Griffin. I mean, he's like a mindless celebrity who, wants to get in on the action, but he doesn't have any original thoughts. He doesn't have any interesting perspective. No. He's just there to repeat somebody else's talking point. And when he was, being taken around, as you say, he's trying to get into the fray and be a little controversial, but he doesn't know how to do it because he doesn't have a mind of his own. No. He just repeats the cant that he's given to repeat. That's what he's done his entire career, and it's worked out pretty well for him, so why stop now? The problem is that's not going to be good enough. And maybe he knows it, and maybe, he's such a lightweight in every single way that he doesn't want to go through what it takes to be the mayor of Chicago. Maybe that's just it as well. But regardless, that was never going to work, and
David didn't matter. Thought it was going to work. He really
never going to work, and it didn't matter because the economic club congregants and the C-suite population thought that was a good idea, and that the bigger story is about the business and civic leadership, in quotation marks, of Chicago. That is the story. They have no clue. None. They're a joke. The Civic Federation, the Better Government Association, the Economic Club of Chicago, all of these corporate boardrooms, all of these private clubs that I used to belong to, where you see these people, they are just like what we saw last night. Exactly what we saw last night in the halls of power in D.C. To borrow from Dennis Miller, one of the best lines of all time, mediocre intellects Earl-shived into looking somewhat consequential. That's Chicago's elite as well. Now, some of them are very smart in their space, in insurance or banking or manufacturing, whatever, real estate, but they are political dolts, and they are invertebrates when it comes to politics. This is the only way this changes in Chicago and Illinois is if you are ready to get in and throw punches. And these people are not. So they say, is there some, tool that we can put forward that checks enough boxes and we can throw enough money at, and we can decry Lightfoot like we decried Fox, and somehow that person will win, and then we'll have, sort of a person we can work with in City Hall on the 5th floor like we did with Rahm or with Daley. That's the level of thinking. They're simpletons when it comes to politics and public policy. Simpletons. I don't care where their degrees are. I don't care what their net worth is. They have no idea what they're doing. The expert class. And they are really party to the destruction of Chicago. And there's not enough attention paid on them. And if I had the time, I would pull out the board of directors of the Civic Fed and the Economic Club of Chicago and the BGA and all these other pseudo good government deep thinking organizations and read them to you, because those are the lists that's the real list of people who destroyed the city. Yeah, the city councilmen and the mayors and the bureaucrats and the grifters. Yeah, that's the easy stuff. That's the low hanging fruit. It's the people in the shadows who don't want to be brought into the fray other than as check writers and disclosed on, campaign disclosure forms, because I'm just doing my civic duty to participate in politics and support the mayor or support a candidate for mayor and so on and so forth. They're a joke, an absolute joke, and an embarrassment. They are who destroyed this city. And, we're going to spend, not today, but sometime, we are going to go through them. Okay. Profiles. Yep. They deserve to be brought out into the light, more so than they have been. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro. Answer line 64636DA, turnkey.pro. Text. And we've talked about this before. Who can run for mayor? I have conversations with people. I'm getting together a group of rich people, and we're looking for a mayoral candidate. Okay, now I've scrapped that. I'm getting together a group of people, and we're going to look to advance school choice. Okay, now we scrap that. There's no appreciation for power politics in this town from people who, number one, are cowards, but they have positions of influence. Number two, there are some that actually don't want profile and are not looking for credit, but do have good intentions and do come from the right place, but they still have no idea what they're doing. And they listen to people who also have no idea what they're doing. It's the most frustrating thing.
And that's why people are leaving.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
I mean, the writing couldn't be any clearer on the wall.
Right. You're banging your head against the wall. You know, it doesn't hurt when it stops.
Right. How many times have we said it? Where does the revolt come from in Chicago? Tell me where there is somebody doing something interesting and innovative and challenging the status quo from really the only place it can effectively come from if you want to turn around this city, or at least make a game effort to do so, and that's the conservative reform perspective. Where is anybody doing anything like that other than the school choice movement, which is really a statewide movement that also has folded in Chicago to some extent, but of course it represents a fraction of the influence that the Chicago Teachers Union has. Where is that? Tell me where it is, and I'll throw in with, whatever little I can do.
It's not there.
All the big shots, the rich and the powerful and the educated, and all these great institutions we have, the hospitals and the universities and the big companies and the professional associations, the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce, the Illinois Restaurant Association, the Michigan Avenue, Greater Michigan Avenue. So how have all these powerful, successful, educated people, how have they performed over the last 2 years? How have they performed over the last 20? Arne Duncan. Of course, Arne Duncan.
Steve from Blue's Clues. That's what he dressed like too. Oh,
it's going to be
with the struggle. It was so embarrassing.
This is the thought process. Who did I go to school with at Latin? Who was in my class at the lab schools?
Or at Parker Francis.
Yeah, Francis Parker.
Francis
right.
Parker, excuse me.
Yeah. This is. Yeah. My kid went to Peyton with somebody else's kid. Maybe that guy'll do it.
Mm-hmm. That's how that whole subculture works in Chicago.
I wish people had more of an appreciation for it. I know it's difficult because this is so sort of below the fold, inside baseball. The most actual, workaday people don't have time to sit around at city club luncheons and listen to morons bloviate for an hour over, your chicken Kiev. But but politicians and government employees and radio talk show hosts do. And particularly being a political guy as I was, you meet these people, you see them, you interact with them. I'm from campaigns and different. You just have. There's just no appreciation for it. And then they trot these people out. They trot themselves out, and they trot these people out like Arne Duncan, and they pretend like they're doing you a favor, like they're presenting some grand insight, like they're serious about actually acting in the interests of the people who pay full freight and play by the rules in this city and state. And they're not. They are not. They are no more talented and no more earnest than the expert class, that technocracy you paid witness to over the last 2 years during the pandemic.
Well, then who's an earnest, smart politician that could be mayor of Chicago?
There isn't a politician.
I mean, a person,
I told you the only
me.
Name I could come up with that I think would be interesting is Bob Musikowski at Chicago Hope Academy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there are others, but that's the point is. So that's my one contribution as a way of saying this is how you should be thinking about it. There are people I don't know that I'm sure have the skill sets and the talent and the ferocity to do the job, but I mean, nobody ever thinks of them.
Well, but because they need money.
Well, I understand.
That's a problem.
I understand.
And David Axelrod's the kingmaker here.
No, that's
he is.
No. Axelrod doesn't. Axelrod's not advancing or stopping anybody. David Axelrod's a kingmaker. Yeah, again, the brilliant red diaper baby David Axelrod, whose big idea was Arne Duncan. He's one of them. What a joke. He's a joke. professional liar David Axelrod.
He still
Please.
wants to be relevant. Yeah.
Here's how you do it. Well, of course, they all want to be relevant. But they don't want to do any real heavy lifting. They want to be relevant, like, oh, I was in this meeting. Oh, I talked to David Axelrod, or I talked to this guy. I went to the Economic Club of Chicago luncheon, and Melody Hobson said this. Who cares? Are you kidding? So here's the thing about the people that are undiscovered is they get the message they're not welcome. They get the message they need an entree, right? I have to be brought in by David Axelrod to be considered, rather than people saying, and people with juice in the city saying, hey, open mic. Anybody who really, has sort of this requisite profile of business success, independent-minded, reform-oriented, and by success, business success, I mean professional success. It could be a nonprofit. It could be in education. It could be anything. We're looking for intellectual killers who actually have a reason to run, and there's a point to what they're trying to do. And it's exemplified in their personal and familial and professional lives. Anybody. Open casting call. And we got 10 guys who are going to put up $5 million each. Because that's not hard to find in Chicago. A lot of dilettantes with more money than sense. So that's what we're going to do. Now you have a very different dynamic. Now you have a very different possibility, because you're actually trying to recruit from this talented population. That's a shadow of it, what it used to be, but it still exists. You're saying to everybody, get involved. And if you know somebody we don't know, put them forward. And if you're somebody that you don't think anybody knows, put yourself forward. Who says that besides me? No one. Because it's about, moving people up through the established channels, through the established gatekeepers, to the established kingmakers. Well, that sort of closed system doesn't work. It doesn't produce talent. It may work for the kleptocrats, but it doesn't work for the city or the state. Joe in Arlington Heights.
That's quite a rant, Mr. Proft, and right on target.
Thank you.
I just wanted to pile on a little bit. On LinkedIn, I did post half a dozen articles, things about crime in Chicago, office building vacancy and mortgage delinquencies, what happened to Perillo, and crickets. One response to half a dozen postings about Lightfoot and Fox needing to get control of crime, needing to get rid of mask mandates, etc. But I did get a phone call from a friend who said, don't be political on LinkedIn. That's bad for you.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. Thanks for
we
the,
got a
thanks
text
for the call,
message, 64636, type in DA. What about Paul Vallis? He seems reasonable. Well,
I like Paul, okay, but I don't think Paul is the vehicle. I mean, I got to tell you, I think Paul is, an honest guy and an earnest guy. I don't think he's the vehicle. That he's been, he's tried a few times through a few different channels. He's been a little bit too politically promiscuous for my taste. He was a little bit slow on the uptake. For example, being Pat Quinn's lieutenant governor candidate.
Well, everybody makes mistakes.
I understand, but I'm just saying it doesn't help.
Smart. I think he will balance the budget. He's a nerdy budget number cruncher.
Yeah, I don't think he is the visionary or the punch thrower that you need as the executive. I think he would be a great chief of staff. I think he'd be a great budget director. I think he'd be a great superintendent of schools so long as the purpose was to break up the Chicago public school system.
There was never a strike when he was CEO of CPS because he always worked well with the unions.
Yeah, well, I don't want somebody who works well with the unions. I want somebody. See, that's the problem. I don't want somebody who works well within the established system. I want somebody who's interested in system change. And Paul Vallis was a work inside the system, and wittingly or unwittingly, he was change on the outside to protect continuity on the inside during his tenure in the city and at CPS. That's what he was. Now, I'm not saying that's what he is today. And I think he could be part of a system change consortium. But if you wanted to be, run CPS again for the purposes of breaking it up,
Yeah, he
and
wants more
reimagining
choice.
it and recasting it, the same thing with the city of Chicago. That's a different conversation. But I mean,
Well,
I
he's
just
big now into school choice, and he
I
wants
know
that
he
for
is.
every Chicagoan.
Yeah, I know, and he was in New Orleans, and that's all great. But what I'm saying is, you need somebody that has a revolutionary disposition, to use a phrase the left loves when it's coming from the left. The revolution in Chicago would be conservative reform. And I think Vallis could be a part of it, but I just don't think people believe that he can lead it. And, look, the field that was presented in 2019 provided a wonderful opportunity for Vallis in that fractured field with somebody who had the record that he had. I know he didn't have the money that some of the candidates did, but Lori Lightfoot didn't have money either. She was living hand to mouth through most of that campaign too. And it was a race to, 12% to make the runoff, and Paul Vallis didn't get there. And at some point, you have to say, much like I said when I ran for governor and I didn't put together the money to generate the necessary support, well, Republicans don't think I'm the vehicle. Okay, fine. And I think Paul Vallis has to confront that possibility too. So, of the sort of options we know about that have been seen before, okay, but I'm saying it has to be much broader. The net has to be cast much wider if you want to do something different in the city. Okay, I'm done with my ranting. Coming back at 6:36, we'll get to the president and his remarks about COVID specifically at 6:36.
But now let's head into the newsroom. Here is Mike Scott. Good morning, Mike.
33 degrees at 6:30 on AM 560, The Answer. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky saying Russia is trying to erase Ukrainian history. Zelensky released a video from Kyiv today calling for more international support. Yesterday, Russian forces destroyed landmarks in Kyiv where tens of thousands of Jews were killed by Nazi forces